Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to share with you guys my list for Bardock's crew that came out in Dawn of the Z Legends, and there's a few reasons for that. One, I don't think I did a deck profile for this deck when it originally came out. Two, I think there are a lot of things good going for yellow into national season because of some of the hits to red and how the dynamic of the format might change. I do think there's some room for yellow to grow. Three, I put a lot more time into this deck in this format than I did in the previous format, so I've got a lot more comfortable with it. I actually have a particular line of logic that I've used to build and play this deck that I'll share with you guys in this video. And yeah, I just think that it's a solid deck. I think that yellow's been getting a lot more aggressive decks as of late, which I actually do quite like, and this is definitely quite possibly the most aggressive yellow deck, and I do like that a lot. So that being said, I'll show you guys a profile today. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, there are tons of ways to do so down in the description. But since we're talking about a new deck here, if you guys want to buy any cards for this deck or any trading cards for that matter, it does help me out if you were to use my link in the description to TCG Player. I really do appreciate it. Anyways, let's jump right on into the deck. This deck is a little bit out of order because unfortunately I can't like rearrange on Deck Planet yet. Hopefully it's a feature that comes out soon. But anyways, we will start with 4 copies of Tora. So this is a card that I was not huge on in the beginning, but over time I've come to like it a lot, especially with the hits to red. So losing Resolve Renewed makes this card a little bit harder to counterplay, and a lot of the cards that red now wants to use to counter this, they have to be at 4 or less life. There's a few different options like Beerus Ball or Begrudging Allies, and it's usually too early in the game for them to be at that life total to counterplay this. So this is actually really good for helping keep our Unison alive, because unfortunately our Unison's not very naturally tanky, but you can end a lot of turn 2s with 1 energy open, leave an energy open for this, and then your Unison will be pretty likely to survive that turn, which is nice. And on your Awakened side of your leader, you still draw a card when you play a crew on your opponent's turn, so you're not losing out too much there. Then we have 4 copies of Fascia, Feelings Bequeath. Of course, just a classic turn 1 starter. Want to make sure that we have enough crews to get awakened by turn 2, because turn 2 is typically when we do want to awaken, and we want to be able to play a crew on both our awakened and unawakened side if we can help it to get those 2 draws. 4 copies of Gradient Borgos, Sand Potential. I love this and the Shugesh as well. These cards are both just so good for 1 energy. I mean, rest a guy, pop a guy, double strike, dual attack once you have 3 more energy. Being able to rest them by your own skills, which is relevant for your leader to pop things. And Borgos can be rested by any skill in Restood, which is relevant in the Yellow Mirror if you're up against Riposte. This is just a free swing through Riposte, basically. You can tap it and then it restands itself. Then we have 3 copies of Grade 8 Bardock, Sand Potential. I go into this guy far less. I typically just end up casting Shugesh and Borgos for their own cost instead of playing them off of Bardock. There are times when Bardock is really good. Like, for example, in this format, blocker negates are everywhere, right? So you're going to get into a lot of scenarios where your opponent's going to blocker negate until they're down to 1 life, and if you have some way to deal with that blocker negate, playing this guy and getting 2 more monkeys out is a really good way to pressure them at that last life, if you're following what I'm saying. That's a really good play, but generally I don't play this guy super early on because he's not great into floodgates. You basically play a bunch of battle cards that you can attack with if they floodgate you, so I'd rather just pay the 1 for the Borgos, pay the 1 for the Shugesh, get the immediate value there. Then I have 1 copy of Bardock, Inherited Might. So I've seen some builds revolve around this card. This build doesn't really revolve around it, but it can be very good against red going first, namely SS4 Gogeta. That matchup, for pretty much any deck that's playing against it, always comes down to trying to force their Z Awaken at an inopportune time for them. And if you can do that, you generally win the game pretty shortly after. This card's really good at that because of the errata to Violent Raise. This gets right under the new errata to Violent Raise, which is great. This can swing multiple times, and they can't do too much to stop it. I mean, they can block or negate, and that'll stop 2 attacks, but it has typically 2 more attacks after that. So, yeah, if you can pressure them really hard with this card, that can work wonders in that matchup. But it doesn't come up all the time, which is why I'm only playing the 1 copy. As I don't know, you can look at it as sort of like a Mirror Creator Absorb, where it's just like that one like really big push card that you don't want to see too many copies of, but it can be clutch later in the game. Then we have 4 copies of Bardock, Crew Leader. Again, another classic 1-drop you want to start the game with. And I'm also now playing 2 copies of Borgos, Raider's Warcry. I was swapping between 2 of this Borgos and 2 of the Shugesh that simply draws a card, but there were a lot of times that I wanted to search for, Shugesh Sand Potential or Borgos Sand Potential. So I'm including 2 copies of Raider's Warcry Borgos for that reason, and I liked it quite a lot. So typically, we have 6 turn 1 plays we want to start the game with. I would probably prefer Crew Leader if I don't have Unison in hand, because he can search Unison, but so can Fascia, so it's okay if you end up on Borgos. That's perfectly fine. Then we have 3 copies of Borgos, Feelings Bequeath. So a clutch counterplay, gets around Deflect, only hits 7 or less, but it's still solid. It's good against Sin, and it's good against SS4 Gogeta. Against SS4 Gogeta, you can hit the guys they play during battle, which is really good. And against Sin, this can help keep your Unison alive. You can tap down, let's say, the Dread Destroyer, prevent that double strike going at your Unison. so this card is also clutch as well. One copy of Grade 8 Fascia. This pairs nicely with Grade 8 Bardock Sand Potential because if you ever happen to draw Fascia, Bardock can put it back into your deck and then play it off of its own auto. So it doesn't really matter if you draw it. If you draw it too early and it's like the only chargeable card in your hand, that kind of sucks, but that's a pretty rare occurrence. So yeah, it does pair quite nicely with Grade 8 Bardock because he brings out the battle cards with their skills negated anyway, so you might as well just bring out a 30k beat stick. Then, of course, we have 3 copies of Krillin Super Combo and the 1 copy of, Gohan Piccolo's in here somewhere. Here it is. Yeah, I mean, the best yellow Super Combo lineup you could probably be playing. And then we have the 4 copies of Guinea. I've seen some builds not play it. I don't think it's 100% essential to the deck's success, but I do like the fact that it can increase your hand size if it happens to live. That just snowballs you into a situation where you pretty much out advantage your opponent and have a good likelihood of winning the game. And the -3 is cool too, where you can free play Sand Potential and play some monkeys for as low as 1 energy. So it does synergize nicely with the deck, and your leader is constantly tapping your own things to do stuff, so Guinea draws cards off that. It is good, and there are plenty of ways to protect it nowadays. 2 copies of Cooler. I mean, it's so weird. Like, Cooler is so bad against red, but so good against blue that I feel like you have to play 2 just to respect both colors. Like, you don't want to clog on it with 3 copies. You don't want to not have enough with 2 copies, so I think 2 is just the right number to play right now. 3 copies of Release from Evil, another great card helping protect the Unison. It's free when the Unison's on board, and it contributes to another card that we'll see later on. We have the 1 power of a Super Saiyan. Of course, you're just going to play it because it's so good. 3 copies of Frieza Army Reinforcements, another card that's great at protecting the Unison, but again, I mean, blocker negates are just super staple at this point. You wouldn't be caught not playing them in just about any deck right now. And then we have the 3 Bardock Riposte. Okay, so this is the thing I didn't like about the deck before. I did not really like about Bardock's crew that I couldn't fit Riposte into the deck, at least in the early builds, because it seemed at first you had to play so many crews. And that's still pretty much true. You do have to play a very high number of crews, because you got to have 4 crews in different spots to awaken by turn 2, right? And that's what we generally want to do. We generally want to do that so we can awaken by turn 2. I found it very hard to fit Riposte in the deck at first because there was a low number of extra cards and a low number of just slots to play Riposte in general. But I was able to cut down some of the crew stuff and fit in Riposte, and I found a sweet spot where I really do like it. So generally the way I play the deck is turns 1 and 2, I'm typically charging Bardock's crews to make sure that I have enough crews in all my areas to awaken. Sometimes you can get away with charging an extra card on turn 2. It kind of depends on what your hand looks like, but if you can do that, all the better. Going into turn 3, I like to charge an extra card. This way, I've probably used like a blocker negate or Release from Evil from the previous turn. That's 1 extra card on my drop, and then the 1 extra card in my energy means that Riposte is now live on turn 3. This is one of the very few decks you'll catch me playing less than 4 Riposte. I think it makes sense in this deck because, again, you're not really having it live until turn 3, so you don't want to play too many copies. You've got Tora, which is somewhat of a similar card, although it only protects your non-leader cards, so it's not great at protecting your life total, but it is another supplementary negate. So I think 3 Riposte in this deck with my line of logic and my kind of curve, at least for charging, makes a ton of sense. Then we have the 1 copy of the Dark Broly Heartless Berserker. I love Mirror Created Absorbed in yellow decks. You guys know me, but this deck is very energy hungry. So the free Overwhelm is the one I'm going with here. And we have the 2 Final Flash. I quite like Final Flash in this deck because your leader offers you such easy removal on battle cards. And Final Flash not only helps push damage through, like on a Great Ape Shugesh, that's a 35k double strike for 1 card, and it allows you to kill any barrier battle card simply by activating your leader effect. So I do like the 2 Final Flash in the main here a lot. I think it's quite good. Going down to the Z deck, we of course have the 1 Bardock Sand Determination. We have the 2 Goku Evolved Defender. Again, this deck's very energy hungry, so it's kind of hard to go into this deck, or into the Z battle card, I should say, every so often, but it is there for your longer grindier matchups. This is actually really good against a lot of blue leaders because they want to swing to get various effects. The ones for mounting when you need it, the 2 Oolongs when you need them, obviously copying your SCR or your Broly Overwhelm typically. And then a new card I'm trying out, Gamma 2 Executing Justice. The main thing here is the activate main. So if you're up against like a really stally defending control deck, this can potentially draw you a lot of cards when they activate counters. Again, I'm more so trying it out. Don't have great data on it yet, but the yellow Z deck's like not too tight, so might as well just try it out for now. And then we have a sample side deck down here. You guys can just take ideas from this. I mean, I think T-Blow is mandatory. I think Primal Transformation is a card I would like to main. It's really good against Sin. Not so great against Gogeta because their guys had Deflect. Time Magic I think is really good this format. Absolute Annihilation I think is good for your blue and your yellow matchups. Third Cooler, of course. Koitsukai is kind of optional. Forbidden Power. And then SS4 Vegeta Thwarting the Dark Empire It's an overwhelm swap you can make with Dark Broly that just helps answer wider boards, so I do kind of like it for that reason. But again, just a sample. Obviously, it's not like my solidified side deck going into Nats or anything, but it's something I've been working with. But anyways, guys, let me in the comments below what you think about this list. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.